Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Mirror Gaming Walkthrough Podcast. It's the weekly gaming news show full of spicy takes and juicy gossip. And my, oh my, have we... The time has arrived. One of the best RPGs of the year has arrived, question mark. We'll see. Gaming editor Nathan Starlord himself is praying over there. But so we're going to be getting deep into our discussion of all things Starfield, so look forward to that. But in addition to that, Nintendo have been tearing up all the news headlines, specifically about Zelda's lack of DLC, potentially. And obviously, less than a week ago, we had our full deep dive direct into Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which we'll be getting all of our thoughts on. But before that, let's roll those titles.
Are you prepared to go public with your KD online or
no?
Everyone thinks he or she is the best football expert on the planet.
You see it in the back page of the Mirror, deal agreed.
I think the most important thing is just to have fun. What?
310?
No, what button is it?
Well, hello.
We're ready to come for the W, yeah?
Ooh, 12. Ooh.
Here we go. If you can master Second Man Press, you will defend 10 times better.
Today I'm going to be reviewing the PSVR 2 headset.
Oh, 12. Oh, you know, when you hear that sound, what time it's for the walkthrough. So I am gaming content creator Aaron Potter. I'll be your host for today's show. And also, it's my pleasure to say, joining me, we've got gaming editor Nathan Bliss. How are you doing today, Nathan? Thank you very much for joining us on Earth today.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have touched down on home soil, even though you can visit Earth in Starfield, spoiler alert. But yeah, no, thank you for having me on. I think it's been a month since I was on the walkthrough, I think.
Has it been that
3
long?
weeks? Yeah, it's been quite a while. So I'm delighted to be back. Obviously, I've been watching the walkthrough while I've been off as well. And you guys did a great job, very entertaining. But I'm just looking forward to getting back in the conversation because I'll put some things down on the chat, but I'm excited to get back into it.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, you've had a busy day streaming Starfield for us as well. So
yes,
you know,
just over 5 hours.
5 hours this man has been, trying to work out how to best field those stars. But also, I'm proud to say joining me is a Mirror Gaming walkthrough veteran, because it's been 2 weeks since I was last on the pod. Ground control to Major Scott McCrae, freelance gaming news writer. How are you doing this week, sir?
All right, I'm a bit nervous. Last time I shared my opinion about a Bethesda game on this podcast, I think someone said I should be institutionalized. So we'll see how this week goes.
Wow.
Having played a little bit of Starfield.
Those Bethesda fans, they are rabid. They are rabid, man.
Yeah,
so, I won't take it to heart too much. But yeah, thank you very much both for joining me this evening. Let's get straight into it, guys. And by the way, I should mention that we are streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, potentially TikTok as well. But if you've got a comment, be sure to leave it in the YouTube comments. And we've got, all the time in the world to not all the time in the world, all the time in the galaxy to respond to them and just be part of the conversation. It makes the show that much more fun for us as well. So anyway, Starfield is finally out, I think, for everyone. No more early access, no more pre-order exclusive digital premium edition, anything like that. So let's dive into it. Following weeks, months, and even years of hype, Bethesda's widely anticipated and ambitious space RPG Starfield has released on both Xbox Series X and PC. It received middling to good reviews upon the embargo lift last week, with many praising the way it advances the RPG formula fans of Fallout and Skyrim are familiar with, while some critique has been leveled towards its number of load screens and over-reliance on fast travel. Gaming editor Nathan Bliss has been covering it extensively for the Mirror Gaming YouTube channel and website as well, dubbing it a game of endless possibility. I've got plenty more written down that I could dive into, but the man himself's here. Adam L., thanks for joining us. Jasmine, we've got you joining us as well. Thank you very much. Adam L. says, Scott, you're my favorite Scottish member of the Mirror Gaming team. So there you go, Scott. What more can you say? So yeah, Starfield's out. All three of us on the podcast have been playing it. I'm about 2 or 3 hours in. I think Scott's a little bit more than that. I'm sure we'll get into it later.
No, I'm probably about the same.
About the same? Oh, okay.
But I didn't play any yesterday. I was watching Ninja Turtles.
But you're liquid with the Starfield credits, as we just found out yesterday. So, Nathan, what do you think of Starfield? You are the designated Mirror Gaming reviewer. Lay it on us.
So for for those who regulars on the Mirror Gaming channel and also read our stuff, you'll know that I've done a first impressions piece for the embargo list, because I could only spend around 20 to 30 hours with it at that point when the review embargo dropped, and I felt like I could only really do a first impressions piece because the game was just so big, and I felt that I hadn't seen, like, people say, oh, I haven't seen everything, so I can't review it. I didn't see anything, rather than like everything. It was like I just felt like I needed to play it more, and even having like the extra few weeks, there's stuff I'm still finding out that you can do, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And yeah, there's just all these little bits of stuff. Overall, it's a huge game. Like the scale of it is just ridiculous. There's been some magical moments that I was sort of, when I was in the months and years up to launch, I had it in my head around Starfield, and obviously I've bigged the game up as well on the podcast a lot, talked to you guys a lot about it. And it was in my head, it was about having those magical moments in space, those exploration, those discovery moments, rather than the main quest. The side quests are the most important for me, and that's what makes these games so special for me, because the main quest is all well and good, but the side quest is where the real magic is with these games. And so far with my time, I've infiltrated a floating casino in the air and looted the jackpot from some pirates. I've joined the Crimson Fleet pirate faction and looted a cruise ship. Attempted to make the Millennium Falcon, as Adam L says in the chat as well. I've ate a chicken tikka masala on a grandma ship. A grandma just called me in and she gave me a chicken tikka masala.
And that is a very Nathan Bliss thing to do.
It is absolutely.
Absolutely.
I've gone through sort of a Batman style quest where there's like a legendary character that I'm not going to spoil here, but you end up finding their ship and their armor at the end, because you have to follow like all these clues, and then there's like little puzzles. There's just so much around this game. It's not Goku, confirmed. And as much as Adam L wants me to push someone to have an airlock, I haven't been able to do that yet, so I can't confirm that. But just overall, I think I do stand by my quote of it's going to be a game of endless. It's a game of endless possibility, because it is that. And I know a lot of people have seen or have realized that there are certain boundaries to the game. So, for example, you can only walk to a certain point on a planet, and if you fly a certain direction, I know we'll get into, if you fly a certain direction in the planet, you can travel to planets if you take 7 hours, but it doesn't necessarily work out. But overall, for me, I feel like it hasn't exceeded my expectations, but it's certainly met them. I'm certainly very happy with it, and I can't stop thinking about it when I'm not playing it, and when I am playing it, I don't want to stop playing it. And for me, that just kind of confirms to me that they've hit the mark with Starfield. It's not a perfect game, as I'm sure we'll go into in a bit, but for me, some of the stuff I've discovered and some of the stuff I'm yet to discover that I know is coming, for me, it's just a ridiculous game. I just use that phrase. It's just a ridiculous game. Some of the stuff that I've experienced, ridiculous.
Oh, well, thanks for telling us some of your deeper thoughts there, Nathan, because obviously, like you said, you put up your early reviews. You said it was an ambitious game. The galaxy is your oyster. Look forward to Nathan's full thoughts. You're getting them exclusively here on the podcast before they go anywhere else, guys. So
absolutely.
The hottest of takes. Before we find out Scott's initial impressions of Starfield, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's commenting in the chat. We've got Adam L, who says Nathan's attempt at making the Millennium Falcon was not optimal, but what is in life? Ambitious, come on. Jasmine says, no way Nathan has found a way to scran a curry in space. Believe it or not, all things may or may not be possible in this game, and you just did it. JD Incinerator, contrary to usual form, is not bringing up Twisted Metal for the PS3. Says, even though it's Starfield, I think about somebody playing Crawl Out Through the Fallout at a wedding. Is that must be a track of a song? There's a Bethesda collection there with the Fallout reference, but hey, you keep on living your best life, JD.
Yeah.
Scott, so you think you've played about 2 or 3 hours, similar to me. I think it's fair to say, of those of us on the podcast, Nathan was the most eager and excited to dive into the game. Me and you a bit more skeptical. What's your impressions of the game so far?
So I think I elaborated on this a bit last week. I've never really loved any of these Bethesda RPGs that much. Like, I've played all of them. I've played all of them a decent amount. I think Skyrim's probably my least favorite, and New Vegas was probably my favorite in the bunch.
Skyrim's your least favorite.
Don't, because
Wow.
I'm gonna get insulted again.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it there.
They're gonna come for him.
I don't like the combat, which is a good segue to say this is the best the combat has ever been in any one of these. Good job, Bethesda. I mean, I think there was word of id Software maybe helping on this. Who, Doom and all that, so it makes sense that the combat is quite good, but it actually feels decent to shoot things and to attack things with a weapon, which, that's the main thing I needed. I know it seems like such a small thing in the grand scheme, but if your combat's not like amazing, then that was my thing with Skyrim. I feel like every time you swung a sword at someone, there was no impact to it. So I ended up playing like a bow and arrow stealth build, which apparently was optimal in that game.
You say that just before you go too deeper, like, because I agree with you, like combat does tend to be lacking in a lot of Bethesda games, which is strange. And I think it's not a bad criticism to have, hence why I think they've looked at it a bit closer for Starfield, because okay, for as much exploration and dialogue options as there are, the primary action in these RPGs is still kill. So it's important to get it right. And while I agree with you a little bit that the shooting has improved, it's nowhere as silky smooth as Doom or even Wolfenstein, I would say. As much as I'd love to see glory kills in the Starfield universe. But yeah, big improvement. I concur with Scott's take there.
It looks very good. Like, I'm playing on like medium settings, I think, and I'm at 60 FPS. I could go ultra. I think I was running about 40 odd FPS when I was at ultra, but not that
You're
this
the only
game
one
requires like a proper frame rate. But sorry,
that is a good point. Actually, you're the only one of the three of us playing on PC, so that's cool
so
to hear.
I mean, it looks very nice. Like, I'm very impressed with all the like little kind of like, you go into your inventory and every item has like a model, and it looks very good. The faces can be a bit dodgy, but compared to past Bethesda titles, it's good. There's still a lot of like people sitting at the side and just going like, when they talk to you, very weird animation wise. And I have seen someone like clip into a chair and like stand up straight on it. So, it still is a Bethesda game at its heart. I had a curry and then I started playing it.
In real life or in the game, did you have a curry?
Yeah, I had a nice wee chicken katsu from Iceland, a My Protein brand one, quite nice.
Can I just say as well that there are naan breads in the game as well?
Oh yeah, they look really nice.
Yeah,
I would stand one of those.
Are chicken booners in the game? That's what I need to know. Some pilau rice up in here.
Yet to find. I've only found a masala, but sorry.
So I've not really delved into the adventure yet. Like, I got to the Constellation HQ and then I did a couple side missions on New Atlantis, so I've not actually left New Atlantis yet. So I haven't got like the biggest grasp on what the game is yet. But the first thing that sticks out to me, and I've got the positive out of the way, but I need to bring it up. What is with the menus? Like, going into your pause menu and then it's like 4 different sections, and there's like, it doesn't feel anywhere near as intuitive as the Pip-Boy, which was already a bit of a mess. At least in the Pip-Boy you would have like, okay, here's your inventory, aid, misc items, and then you could press like a button at the bottom for your map, you could press a button in the bottom for your radio. It felt so I don't really like how menu heavy it is compared to Fallout, which is another one. I don't like the skill system in the slightest. I think it's an absolute step down. In Fallout you would put points in each of your skills, whereas this is like, okay, now you have, every time you level up you get 1 skill point. It's like an Assassin's Creed Origins, or like a kind of a normal skill tree. And for an RPG like this that has stuff like persuasion checks and stealth checks and all that, it doesn't feel like an optimal way to do it. And again, this is like, if I'm complaining about the menus, at least it's not, so far, at least it's not complaints about the actual full game. But that's been my like biggest issue so far, especially that you can't like pickpocket until you unlock it as a skill, or you can't craft a muzzle. Like I picked, I believe it's called the Ronin as my background, and his 3 skills were stealth kills, melee attacks, and something else. I think persuasion maybe. But you can't craft a muzzle until if you go back to the science tab there, I think I need to put like 8 points before I can unlock research methods 2. Weapon engineering, that's it. Yeah. So I need to spend however many points. I don't know. Like that's why I liked so much in Fallout, how I could make someone who's like dumb as rocks, but a good talker and buff as anything, and could like punch things in one hit. Whereas
just
this
need
feels
a little
very
patience, Scott. Good things come to those who wait.
Yeah, you've only played it for a few hours.
I know.
It just feels like a bit of a weird step back in terms of how skill is doled out in these games. And I get it's not Fallout, it's a different game, But
yeah.
I don't know, I kind of miss like the special system. And obviously, again, it's not meant to be the same game. Obviously they've got to change things up. But I feel like this kind of classic skill tree thing doesn't fit it as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Scott. The one thing I would say is that the reason I think they've done this is, and this is someone who's level 26 now and around 30, 40 hours into the game. I've made my whole character around like being a pilot. So I've like almost like my most completed skill tree is the tech one. I've maxed out the pilot in one, so I can pilot any ship, for example. I think the reason why they've done it like that is so that characters aren't all-rounders. You do have to pick and choose specific ones that you want. And I think if you did focus on, for example, a bit of the social and a bit of the science, you could make the character that you wanted. It's just you'd have to put the time in and really focus on those skills. But I completely understand. I don't like this system either, because I only realized 5 hours into the game that every skill had skills within it, different ranks within the skill.
Challenges, that you need to complete, which I think is an interesting choice. Sorry.
Yeah, so for these ones, rank 2, you have to destroy 10 ships. So I was like, okay, cool. Rank 3, 30 ships. I was like, 30 ships? That's going to take me ages to do. And then there is a way to do it a bit quicker. Because I won't spoil it, but there is a way to do it quicker. But I don't necessarily like it, but I just want to put a reasoning for why I think they've done it. I think it's to make your character more specialized.
I could be wrong here. I think the persuasion one is like successfully perform like 30 skill checks to get to level 3. Or how many is it?
Actually, let me unlock rank 2 live. Scott,
live, we're unlocking it.
5.
Yeah. Top 5 challenges to get to rank 3.
If you mess one up, you don't get a chance to go back and do that.
So there's a limited number of skill checks in the game, is what you're saying. So it is possible to not be able to rank it up fully.
And like stuff like lock picking, which has been like a standard move part of your kit, and every single one of these games being locked behind one of these feels a bit, I don't know, like it feels like a bit of a step down. But I mean, again, like I said, if I'm moaning about the skills and the menus, at least it's not the actual game, But I mean,
there's room.
Aaron seemed to be into the discussion about the fast traveling and the maps and all that.
Right.
So I'll let you get onto that.
So overall, as we were saying just before the pod, before I dive into my impressions, I do want to, everyone's chiming in on the chat, and thank you very much for commenting. Maheen, it's good to see you, buddy. Says another Prime Scott take here at Mirror Gaming. I think that was towards your Skyrim comment. Adam L saying, can we have a food article review of Starfield? Believe it or not, that is a possibility. We saw that, Zelda, which we may talk about later, was big on food. Starfield seems like it's much the same. And then Adam L follows up by saying, I like the idea of that skill system. And I agree, like with the skill thing, like it is what it is. Like I play RPGs, but it's not a case. I don't feel like I'm being limited. And I like the idea of there being the challenge system specifically, I think is a good way, rather than pouring in more skill points to upgrade better versions of the same skill. I think a challenge system that encourages you to use that skill in different ways is the correct way about going about it personally. But then, so overall, as we were talking before, I think this is it's a Bethesda game, and that's what it is. It's a Bethesda game in space with some extra trimmings along, and that's for reasons both good and for reasons bad. I don't think the FPS combat is as slick as Scott is making it sound. At least it hasn't opened up for me yet. I can't quite tell whether or not it's. But look at the food on that.
I mean,
Is that the?
I would like
masala?
Yeah.
I would like to clarify when I'm saying that obviously you can feel the influence of something like Doom or that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it feels anywhere near as good as Doom. I'm just saying compared to the likes of Skyrim and Fallout, it feels miles ahead.
Well, the thing
Can
that
I just
Fallout
address?
has-
Sorry, I just want to
Go on.
quickly address Adam L. There are no peas in the tikka. That is the peas
In the rice
are
there
in the
is.
rice, which is
Yeah.
fine, right? That's acceptable. I believe that's coriander on the chicken tikka.
Not spring
Jasmine.
onion as Jasmine suggests.
No, I
yeah.
can confirm it's coriander, which is I have that on my curry. So
Get
that's
the
fine.
naan bread up. Do you have naan bread sitting about?
I think I do actually.
I don't know what naan bread is, but I know what naan bread is.
It's called something else. It's called like Red Forest something.
Red Trench. Synth
Oh,
turkey.
you know what? I might have put it in my ship. Hold on one second, guys.
Have a look.
It looks,
while you're
it's a nice looking naan bread.
It is very
Laura Esther in the chat says, I would eat that. Jasmine just says peas, all caps.
Oh.
Oh no, I can't find.
I mean,
it,
the spuds look pretty good. Get a spud up.
Get a
have I got
half-eaten
spud?
sandwich up.
There you go. There's a spud.
That's a good looking spud.
And apparently the physics when 20,000 of them roll out of a cupboard is pretty pretty decent looking as well. Anyway, I can't. Yeah, it's the combat. Like Fallout has the VAT system, right? Starfield doesn't, so they've kind of been forced into a corner where they've got to get the combat looking good. But I can't, or feeling good. I can't decide whether or not it's better in first or third person yet. But now, after learning today that there's a lean function, the game doesn't tell you how to use it, or that is even there. And that is another problem I've got with this game. It's just for all the systems, Bethesda seem to have taken the approach of we're going to give you so many options in terms of how you want to approach this game, but we're going to let you try and discover them for yourself, almost in that Zelda way, where it's like, here's a world, go make your impact within it. But the loaded screens are an issue for me a little bit, like climbing up ladders, black screen.
Yep.
And then like fade up. Although they're not as egregious as I was led to believe, they're pretty quick on a Series X. I'm assuming they're the same on
They do get
PC.
longer as you get into the game, and that's
Right.
because of the. So this is the potato issue. Is that if you leave items, the game tracks where you leave items. So the more items you leave and the more things you interact with, the game has to have like it must be something to do with the cache of the game and how much cache it stores. Yeah, exactly. So it does get longer, but they're fine. Like they're fine.
Yeah. And then the other right. So Scott, I don't think you would have experienced this yet because when you get to New Atlantis, you did the side missions, right? I carried on with the main quest, so it's pretty cool that we've got both opinions. I think the first main quest is to track down a member of the Vanguard. Nathan, is that correct?
Remember the Constellation? You mean?
Well, you join up with Sarah, who's one of the first companions at the Constellation, and then she's like, "I've heard pray tell that this bloke's got another piece of the artifact, which is a very convenient main mission." A MacGuffin, this artifact. Yeah. And I kid you not, I think I completed this mission within about 30 minutes, which was to track down this guy. And you get to do some cool things within it. But within that time, I must have fast traveled to 4 or 5 different planets. And 3 of those times it was, you're at the planet, talk to this guy, right, bugger off to the next planet, go and talk to someone else, and then bugger off to the next planet. All the while this is happening, I'm not getting a sense of the world because all I'm doing is opening up my star map, finding the mission objective, hitting track route, and then letting the game do the work for me, and then getting myself there with a bits of flight in between. So I just feel like go on.
The bit at the
You
start
will be,
you
Scott.
finally get to do it like this, where it's like you're getting scanned for cargo and you're like flying towards this massive planet, and then you just have to hold X to travel to the planet. Like, what's the point of the flight at that point other than to have some like shooty fights in the sky? Like, you can just fast travel everywhere. Also, very quickly, that guy at Constellation, the old guy who's immediately annoying and annoys you, I shot him in the head and he just kind of went, okay, and fell on his knees. And no one did anything.
Yeah.
In New Vegas, you could walk into the first tavern, shoot someone, whole cities against you. But in this, you can't shoot the annoying old guy in Constellation.
Well, I tried doing that to Barrett when he landed on that first mining planet, and obviously that wouldn't work. But you could damage the robot. He kind of reacted. Again, this isn't Baldur's Gate 3 where entire companions can be like killed and then left out of their storylines. But so yeah, I just the main point was it feels a bit disconnected, and I wish that Bethesda were a bit more open about that, if that makes sense, and not setting these expectations, because the No Man's Sky comparisons were almost instant out the gate.
Yeah.
And at least in that perspective, it's not as deep.
I agree. I think they could have made it. They could have done it. I don't know how they would have done it, but I just wish that there was another. They did it in a way that, with a sense that you're traveling a distance.
Yeah.
And you are actually traveling to places. And the other thing that's strange as well is that when you go from planet to planet, or you go from galaxy to galaxy, or star system to star system, there's like a fuel meter that comes up, and like I always think there's no point to that, because you don't have to get fuel. That's just given to you. You don't have to ever worry about that. That's just to show the distance. That's another way of showing the distance. I do feel like it would have been better to have some sort of system where you do feel like the traveling, you get a sense of how much you're traveling, because it's so quick. The loading screens are so quick that it does feel a bit strange, especially at the start for me. And I said in my first impressions, like when I first got to New Atlantis, you get out, it's a loading screen. You're like, okay, I want to go back to my plane now. Go back into the plane, into the ship, loading screen. Go into the
Air
cockpit.
Force One.
Yeah. You go into the ship, go to the cockpit,
go to the computer.
So you go into the ship, that's a loading screen. Then you go to the computer, that's not a loading screen, it's like
an animation.
It's an animation, like a cutscene, a mini cutscene. Then you choose where you want to go. Then there's a cutscene that shows you lifting off and going. Then you're in orbit. Then you go back to where you choose where you want to go. Then there's another cutscene to show you driving somewhere. Then you go to the orbit, and then you have to open the planet map to choose where you want to land on the planet. And then there's another cutscene, and then there's a cutscene. There's a cutscene and a loading screen when you have to get out of the ship. So there's just there's so much immersion breaking opportunities.
I agree that is a very involved process and unnecessary, but I don't know if Scott can back me up on this, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you enter the scan view on a planet, you can for one, you can just teleport straight to your ship, right? You can like find where it is and then like teleport there. But I swear I was on Mars and I needed to get to Venus, and that was when I did that thing again where I went to the mission objective and it said set course fast travel, and I could just fast travel from the ship. But the point I'm making is both options aren't ideal, because one is too involved, the other is completely immersion breaking and focuses on fast travel. There needed to be this middle ground, especially considering that planets aren't anywhere near the size of No Man's Sky, and they have got their boundaries. And I've heard some arguments about hitting a wall on a planet is very immersion breaking. Why didn't they just do the wraparound? Like, it might not have been true, but you go east and then you reach the west part of the city. And in my mind, when I was playing it, again, I've only done 2 or 3 hours, and with that mission example I gave, where you're going 5 different locations, it might be a case that it's really early on and they want to show you a lot of where you can go, and I'm sure that's what it is. But for one mission to take me to all those places, and for me to be like, I don't know if I'm ever going to go there again. Like, I don't really have a sense of what's happening at that place or the people that live there. I'm going to get probably a lot of crap for saying this, but like, I think a game that did it better was Borderlands 3. Like, you go to a planet, there's loads of missions to complete on that planet, and you're constantly traveling in a vehicle with wheels to different locations on that planet. Borderlands 3 has like 7 planets. I don't know, between 5 and 7. And I almost wish that Bethesda focused on like 10 planets, made them really in depth, rather than doing this wide as an ocean, shallow as a puddle with some good stuff in between. That's just where I'm coming at it from. My opinion might change the more I play.
Speaking of games with bad writing, like Borderlands 3, some of the clips at the start of this game, man. The dialogue from those first 2 in the mine was like Marvel movie stuff. Like, anyway, what I was going to say, this is an even weirder comparison to Borderlands 3. Kingdom Hearts is what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking about traveling between planets, which would work better for this, because then you would, so basically in Kingdom Hearts, you would pick you're at Winnie the Pooh world, we want to go to Pinocchio world, and then you get like a bit where you build your ship and you go through like a shooting gallery kind of level where you're flying through space and you're fighting enemies, and then you get to your planet and then you warp onto it. Just do that. just make it like that rather than like.
But Scott, this has
can...
to be seen as an open world game when it's not an open world game. Do you know what I mean? They've talked about it as if it is, and it's just a Bethesda game. And even in something like Elder Scrolls, you're traveling between point to point to point. You gain a sense of the place, and I struggle to see how that's going to be. Obviously, Nathan, on your stream earlier, you were talking about a city called Neon, which I've heard a lot of people are impressed by. But then, I don't know. With an open world game, it's usually the adventures you're coming across in between.
I'll pose a question here. Is it even possible to make a good space open world game at this point? Because, like, for the scope of something like this, people will it. Because not that this is a reasonable expectation to have, right? But I assume there are people out there who heard, oh, Bethesda are making a space game. It's their first big RPG since, like, what, Fallout 4, Skyrim.
Yeah.
Every single planet is going to be as big as Skyrim, or at least half of a Skyrim. But it's just not a reasonable expectation. It's just a town from Skyrim, basically, each planet.
Yeah.
But because there's not that
10%
like,
of each planet.
Yeah, because there's not that like interconnected, like you fly from each planet like something like No Man's Sky, which obviously, again, not a reasonable expectation because all of that is procedurally generated, which I believe some of Starfield is. I haven't really ran into that.
So the way it works is that if you land on a planet in Starfield, like a random planet with nothing on it, the game generates an area that you can explore, and that area is as big as the Fallout 4 map in its entirety that you can explore.
Why me?
That bit is procedurally generated, but there are some handcrafted elements that are included in the game. So you saw, for example, on my stream earlier, I landed on Europa, which is one of Saturn's moons. And the game said it had nothing on there. It was like barren. It was like an ice planet. And you land on there, and there's a certain number of locations that are automatically generated on these planets. So there's a abandoned mine, there's a cave. These are the ones that I've found so far. There's like a abandoned mech factory, abandoned robot factory, abandoned research facility. There's about 10 to 15 of these like actual like places, and every time you go to an empty planet, you always find a version of those on the empty planet because it just gives you something to do. So yeah, the world is procedurally generated, but there is handcrafted elements that are dotted in between. That's just the worlds that have nothing on them. For the worlds that have something on them, like Mars, Earth, Jemison, the main one, the one with New Atlantis in, Neon, Aquila. There's a couple more that I won't spoil as well, but yeah, there's loads that have been built from the ground up, if you like.
It seems like for a game that's promising the freedom and level of exploration that Starfield is, that seems like the only viable solution to do it. My argument would be, don't promise the galaxy in the first place, but hey, they did it, and there's nothing to say they can't add to it in the future, I guess, with like DLC planets or something like that.
Yeah.
But
so I've seen. Sorry, just quickly, just on that point. So I've had like a few ups and downs with this game over the last couple of weeks. Like, comparing it to No Man's Sky, being disappointed because you couldn't like the loading screens and stuff, and I had sort of an epiphany where like I realized like I'm getting upset about not being able to explore a planet. Once you've explored, say, 30 empty planets and you've seen like 5 abandoned mines that are pretty much identical, you've seen 5 mech factories that are identical that have the same layout. Once you've done that, you don't want to explore anymore. Like there's no real point in exploring those empty places because you've pretty much seen.
But isn't that a failure on the developer's part?
But the exploration is actually in space and through the side quests where you're led to certain places. Rather than you actually just picking a star system and go to a random planet, if you engage with side quests and you don't fast travel. If you don't fast travel and you go to if you go to the orbit outside the planet every time you've got a mission, you will find these special experiences and get side quests, and then they lead you to planets that have something on them, if that makes sense. Rather than you going out and seeking the exploration yourself, you're sort of led to different places. Is how I've experienced the game so far.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be most people's experience, because, like you said, they're just going to keep bumping up against nothing. There has to be some authorship there. I was just going to say, to mention Scott's point, has there ever been like a good open world space RPG? Not open world, but I guess it's similar to Borderlands. The Mass Effect series is kind of taking this similar approach.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Mass Effect, I feel like it's got more in common with like Ratchet and Clank, where there's like different planets you can do stuff on, but it's not like, here, go explore the vastness of space, which is kind of, where it kind of comes to, like, is this feasible for anyone to do, more or less, Bethesda or...
Well, if Bethesda can't do it after, I don't know, I want to say 9 or 10 years that this game's been in active development, then hey, it is what it is. And this is coming from a guy who wants every game to be 15 to 20 hours. Sorry, Nathan, go on.
Just to stick up for Starfield again.
Yeah. We are enjoying it. We're being critical. All of us are enjoying it. Yeah.
Since Fallout 4, I'm taking this off a Reddit thread because this just summarized what I think, but I'm giving Cromulent Kumquat on Reddit.
Nice.
Because they've got a brilliant Reddit thread on here. So for years, since Fallout 4 and even Skyrim, Bethesda fans like me have been begging for less hand-holding, more RPG elements, more speech checks, more diverse quest design, deeper factions, and denser cities and settlements. It has delivered all of those. How dense do we want the game to be?
That's one guy's opinion, though. Like, he's saying it's all Bethesda fans.
My point isn't like I want the game to be this, like I want every planet to be Skyrim level. I think that's a unrealistic expectation to have.
Yeah.
My point being is Bethesda have, I don't know if it's fair to say they've sold it as such, being that way. They've sold it as this massive universe, where in reality it's like, okay, every planet is basically a town in Skyrim. It's less.
So they've taken Skyrim and chopped it up and spread it out across load screens and fast travel points. That's how I see it.
Yeah, like it's not.
It's bigger than that, though.
Yeah,
sure
of course,
yeah.
But what I mean is like, I'm not far enough to comment on the quality of like the side quests and the factions and all that. It'll be hard for them to beat New Vegas on that front, I think. But
Obsidian fanboy, yeah,
it's the best one.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Scott,
go ahead.
Can I pause you? I just want to acknowledge that the chat. Adam L says, like, I like to role play in my single player games, Jasmine. Like when I tried to complete Skyrim as a pacifist. Who knows if anybody's going to do a pacifist run in Starfield? Is it possible? I guess technically you can talk your way out of a lot of situations. And then Maheen says, to me, Mass Effect is the standard when I think of space games. Yes, Maheen. Mass Effect 2. You know the one. And then JD Incinerator says, I'd rather games be 8 hours because they're less likely to overstay their welcome. In a perfect world, JD, I'd be inclined to agree with you, but there's a huge market for games that are upwards of 60 hours and all that jazz. Yeah. I think that's where we're going to have to pause the Starfield chat for now.
Can I just mention the star menu is what is my worst thing about the game?
Go on then, Nathan. Take it home for us.
Just quickly.
Go on. You're the star man.
So this for me is... for me is ridiculous. This is the star map. Okay.
Yeah, what's the matter with it? Come on, it looks pretty good.
So for example, I go off exploring, la di da di da di da. Right, I go over here, la di da di da di da di da. This is 3D, by the way, right? So you can like go over the top, underneath, all that jazz, right? If I just select randomly, right, better Turnian, right, go into there. Let's just jump there for a second, right? Let's experience the loading screen, right? Let's experience the loading screen. So we're in this, right? So now we go into the menu, go back to there. If I landed on that planet, which is Better Turnian 1, right? And I explored that, and I love that planet. Imagine if I love that planet and I found something really cool and I wanted to return there again.
Got no way of finding it? Amongst the sea of stars, yeah.
How do I find that again? You tell me how I'm finding that again.
Is there an in-game logbook?
No, not where from where you visit. Only missions. If you have a mission on a planet, you can go through your completed missions and then like work it out from there. But if you're just exploring on your own, there is, unless you write down the galaxy that you visited and then wrote down the planet, and then you have to manually go through everyone and find where you've been.
I will say I did think the like town maps that everyone.
Oh, the town maps even worse.
I thought that was a joke.
What town maps?
Okay, oh, have you not seen? Go to like.
No, that is the joke. I have seen it. It's just got some blank map. Yeah.
Right. So this is Alpha. This is the main. This is the main place, right? So you go onto here. Let's set a landing to. Let's just go. Oh, hang on a minute. Sorry, I'm doing this on my second monitor. So let me just land it.
Starfield Let's Play.
Live.
We're doing this live
today on the Mirror Gaming YouTube channel. So we're giving you more.
I'll say one of the default characters in the character creators looks like Mirror Gaming's very own Lewis. I'll need to send.
Oh, really? Yeah, pop that in the Slack, mate.
I saw something. I spent 16 hours creating Todd Howard. That was funny.
I was disappointed with the character creator. I thought I couldn't make a very good old man. I love to make like an old haggard wizard whenever I make a character. But yeah, look at that.
Where do I get guns from? Where do I get gear from? Where do I get ammo from? Like, where are these side quests? Like, how do I get there? Like, what?
Yeah, crazy stuff.
What is going on here?
I'm gonna have to wrap up the Starfield chat
because
what? We promised the people. Go on, Scott.
Do you know what game has a map? Legend of Zelda.
Oh yeah, the Legend of Zelda.
Hey, nice.
I don't know if we're going to be able to talk about this news for a lot longer because I think it'd be worth diving into the Super Mario Brothers Wonder stuff more. But Nathan, obviously you were busy traveling the stars for us, but the news broke today that in Tears of the Kingdom, well, if you were hoping for DLC, unfortunately, the producer AJ Numa has confirmed that no such thing is happening. So obviously, Scott, I think you're the biggest Zelda fan, or I might have that wrong. So I know, Nathan, you like Zelda as well. But Breath of the Wild, it had 2 DLC packs, didn't it? Was it Champion's Ballad?
Champion's Ballad and Heroes Trial of the Hero or something like that.
I know that one gave you a pretty awesome bike that you could have rode around.
Yeah, that was
in Hyrule.
The first one was like it was like a big shrine that you had to go through in like one go, and it was like 50 floors, and you didn't have any of your gear. It was really good. And then the second one was like kind of a mission thing that you got a boss fight at the end of, which was bigger but not as good, I thought. But
yeah, and then the second DLC added the bike along with some bite-sized missions, but crucially, it also added that feature that was in Tears of the Kingdom from the start, which is you could track where you've been on the map. Which I can't believe they left that out of the base game of Breath of the Wild, to be honest, and hid it behind a paywall. But it's in Tears of the Kingdom now. So yeah, despite being the best-selling game in the series, no DLC is planned for Tears of the Kingdom, and that's according to its producer, who confirmed as much to Japanese video games magazine Famitsu in a recent interview. He said, quote, "At this time, we are not planning to release additional content. We feel like we have already fully explored and exhausted the gameplay possibilities in this world. Initially, the reason we decided to develop a sequel was because we believed there was still value in experiencing new gameplay within that particular Hyrule. If in the future we find a compelling reason, we may revisit that world once again, whether it's another sequel or an entirely new title. I hope you'll look forward to it." I'm just going to come right and say it. End quote, by the way. I, for one, am happy. It's done. This version of Hyrule is done.
I was going to say it's the same world. Even he talks about it as the same world.
Maheen makes up a good point. He says, "I think Switch 2 might be affecting this." I agree. Focus on Nintendo Switch 2. If it is going to have a boost in power, give us a new version of Hyrule. Let's get it done. Scott, do you agree?
Can I like start this off by saying, do we believe him? Why would he announce DLC in like a random interview? Like there was no plans to do more Mario Kart 8 stuff. You know, again, I do believe him, but you know, I'm not.
What else is he going to say in the interview? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, I haven't finished the base game yet, so I as well not one minute.
this is a game you can easily spend 200 hours in, much like the first one. So I don't think it's right that every game there should be an expectation that DLC is a given. I think he's just trying to manage expectations by saying this. And one of the questions I've got here on the doc is, if DLC even was on the cards, what more do you think Nintendo could do that they haven't done already in Tears of the Kingdom? Because Tears of the Kingdom is, spoiler alert, glorified DLC. It started out development that way.
Is it though?
Yeah,
just because something uses a map, like is Horizon Forbidden West glorified DLC?
I think there's an argument, even though that's a different map, it's very similar.
It's a sequel. Like it's not like this is a new. It's only because, you know, I don't even know how to.
Maybe calling Tears of the Kingdom DLC a glorified DLC is a bit extreme. But what I mean by that is the comparisons are obvious, and I could count on like two hands the amount of times me and Nathan in the run up to that game's launch we were like, right, that looks like this place. Shrines are back. Like, do you know what I mean? I feel like Breath of the Wild was such a series evolution that all I want from Nintendo now is to do that again with Zelda. Jasmine saying glorified DLC, but you rated it 5 stars. I did. I rated it 5 stars because I can acknowledge how great the game is, even though I don't love it as much as most people. Zelda isn't my game of the year. Spoiler alert. It might be loads of people's games of the year. Starfield might be Nathan's game of the year. I know what Scott's game of the year is.
And you're both wrong. It's Street Fighter 6.
But Nathan, are you, as someone, have you started Tears of the Kingdom proper yet? Like,
no,
so that's what.
So I wanted to finish what game was I finishing? Yes, I wanted to finish Elden Ring before I jumped into it, and then I was so close to Starfield that I was just like, oh, how do I even do it? So it'd just be one of those. Now I haven't got my now the Steam Deck isn't in my possession. The only handheld device I've got is my Switch, so there might be an overlap with Starfield and Tears of the Kingdom. I am excited to get into it, but I'm feeling the same as you even before I go into it, because if I jump into it and spend 50 hours in it, that means I've spent 2 games playing pretty much the same world,
exploring the same world.
Pretty much the same world, right? So yeah, we need something. We need something. I would rather they can it off completely and focus on a Switch 2 version and a completely new one, and focus all of their energies on that, rather than potentially delaying that for a DLC for this. That's I'm happy about that. If that's
what I want is what Maheen's suggested in the chat. I actually missed the linear Zeldas, so hopefully we'll see a return to that. Nintendo have already come out and stated that is not the case. This is Zelda going forward. It is open world in this way, which kills me. Go on, Scott.
They should get the team who did the Link's Awakening remake to make another 2D Zelda, I think.
An original one.
Is that? Yeah. That remake was very good, and the last 2D one they did was like fantastic. Link Between Worlds, is that right?
On the 3DS, what a game!
That's a fantastic game. They should make another one of those.
But what about the Ocarina of Time style of game, where it is like Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess?
But by the time Skyward Sword,
I think Ocarina of Time is the sweet spot in open world, personally. But Scott, sorry.
By the time Skyward Sword came out, everyone was like, "Oh, they've made 6 of these. Nintendo makes the same games. New Super Mario Brothers 4 at this point." So I guess my question is, if they made Tears of the Kingdom, but it wasn't the same map, would you still be complaining about this style of thing?
I hate that this is what Zelda's become. I would have rather them make an original series, an original IP, and that say in an alternate universe, let's say Genshin Impact came out and there was no Breath of the Wild, like a little bit like that, if you know what I'm saying, or Immortals Phoenix Rising,
there's a space for it. I'll say, there is a space for that old Zelda, and whether they decide to make because after Ocarina of Time, there was the Game Boy games, and that was it until Link Between Worlds. I guess the DS ones were a bit of a weird in between, but there's nothing stopping them from being like, oh yeah, here's Zelda, I don't know, something Twilight based Princess on Ocarina of Time, or they bring back Star Tropics
and that's just Zelda from now
But there
on.
is something stopping them, Scott, and that's public perception. Because these two games are sold like gangbusters, and when people see The Legend of Zelda on a box, that this is the game they're going to expect now. Unless you split that into the 3-pronged Zelda, the linear Ocarina of Time style, the 2D top down, and then the Breath of the Wild. I just think having 3 different SKUs of the same franchise is a bit much.
You said that, but like the Skyward Sword remake did gangbusters. I'm pretty sure that did better than the Wii version. I'm pretty sure.
Well, yeah, but
as good as Breath of the Wild though, and Tears of the Kingdom.
No, but also it is a remake, so there is a market of however many Wii owners that didn't play it.
I don't mind if it's like that again. Is that
Same.
Is that controversial? Yeah, no, as in I don't mind if it's a completely open world Zelda. I enjoyed it.
I mean, there's obviously a middle ground.
Yeah.
There's Ocarina of Time isn't an open world, but you know what I mean? Like, there is a place for a more classically designed Zelda that still retains like open world tricks. But I think what makes Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom such a good open world as compared to like Assassin's Creed or any number of open worlds is that like it's just like open, which sounds ridiculous, but so many open worlds are like Rockstar, as much as their actual worlds are good, their mission design is go here, shoot this guy. If you dare walk like 5 feet off the path, mission failed, restart it. You know? So if there's a way to keep that old Zelda, like go to these 8 dungeons and get these 8 keys and get these powers that will help you for each dungeon, while also keeping how good the open worlds are, then that's like the perfect solution. But
well, speaking of Nintendo franchises, that's
terrible. That was
horrid. Keeping it old school.
You know what was a good Switch game that never got DLC? Super Mario Odyssey. There you go.
Which has got okay. I'll give you that maybe. But then, viewers, 8 minutes to discuss an entire topic. Can we do it? I don't know. But obviously, last week, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, it was the subject of a dedicated Treehouse live stream. We got to see about 15 minutes of this game, which looks absolutely mad. I had to catch up with it because obviously I was at Gamescom. The game may or may not have been at Gamescom. Not that any of us on this podcast got to see it. Me and Scott have some words to say about that. But obviously the gameplay shown, it showed off the new Flower Kingdom, 6 distinct worlds, including levels like Pipe Rock Plateau and Fluff Puff Peaks, which are tongue twisters in themselves. And then obviously there's roamable overworld sections now, talking flowers that offer hints. And then playable characters that the direct dived into. But the main feature, I think, is this new, is it Wonder ability, Scott, where you can transform levels by collecting a certain object. There you go.
Just beyond the Mushroom Kingdom.
Can we get the volume down slightly on that, Nathan?
It's not quite touch fuzzy get dizzy from Yoshi's Island, but it's a similar thing where you touch it and then the world changes, like plants, pipes will start moving and stuff like that. That seems to be the big mechanic for this one, which is interesting enough. I think it does stuff as well where you're like transform into a big spiked ball and stuff like that. And Bowser can transform into a castle this time.
Yeah. Would it be fair, Scott, to say that this is your most anticipated game of the year?
So I was gonna say I'm not the biggest fan of 2D Mario, funnily enough. I'd much prefer the 3D ones. That being said, this is going to be the best game of October. Like, it looks it just looks, after however many new Super Mario Brothers games, I think there was 4 that were all very similar. This looks exactly what like a 2D Mario needs to be. Like, this is the first kind of evolution in it in years. It's about to go into not even the wonder powers, not even the power-ups. That's all fine. That's all cool. The thing that got me is this like badge system they've added. Which in the first, like there with Luigi, like how he's holding his cap like that. It's like a perk system almost, where you can like equip specific things. So you can do like your hat turns into a float, like Peach in Super Mario 2, or you can do the Super Mario 2 charge jump. Or there's a grappling hook, which is like the best game mechanic in any game. If any game has a
Every
grappling
game's
hook,
better with a grappling hook.
good.
100%. That's why Bionic Commando for the PS3 is the best game of all time. Go on.
Ocarina of Time.
Let's scrap this entire podcast. I could talk another hour about how good Bionic Commando for the PS3 is. That's a classic.
So yeah, there's a lot of new stuff going on here, but I also want to touch. Obviously, we got a closer look at the elephant form, which we found out we can blow water, run across gaps, you can swing the trunks to attack, and that it's not just Mario that can transform either, but everybody pretty much, Daisy, Peach, even Toad. I feel like they're trying to make this as newcomer friendly as possible as well, because Yoshi and is it Nabbit? They're basically you can't die when you play as them. We're seeing the elephant power up here.
Like, sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say
the same thing.
The elephant is probably the biggest power up change I've seen since the Tanuki suit from 3D World, 3D Land. I want to say. Scott's nodding in agreement. I thought you were going to add more to that.
Like, look at this. Just like even without mentioning any of the gameplay stuff, just look at it. Like, look at those anime. Look at that Koopa, the way it was running there.
It's not blowing me away. I'll be honest. Like,
what?
Like even, the animation's great. The level design's going to be awesome, I'm sure. But like from a pure like design perspective, that they find themselves in the trap where it's like, okay, we've done the 3D in a 2D space. Now what else do you do next? Oh, let's change up the art style.
Let's make it look good.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the new Super Mario
the last time? Yeah,
started on the DS, didn't they?
Because I played those recently, and they are soulless. And like,
maybe that's it.
I think they are good games, but they are they are sterile, soulless 2D games, which is kind of why I've not been as big of a fan as the 2D games. But like, even like the most like small, like Mario's jump looks like 10 times better. And that's like a jump, you know. Yeah. It shouldn't matter, but it just looks so good.
So there are two more points I want to touch upon before we wrap up the pod. Nathan, do you have anything? Are you particularly excited about Super Mario Brothers Wonder? What's your history with 2D Mario games?
Not really fussed. I'm going to be honest. I could take it or leave it, to be honest.
Not really touch fuzzy.
This just looks like a game that I played on my N64 to me. Like, I'm not going to be like, I don't know, Scott is absolutely.
That's a Matt level comment, right?
No. But when you talk about like jumps and everything, I'm looking and going like, is it? Like
yeah.
I'm just going to summarize. Like, I might play.
You're here for the lulz.
I can take it or leave it. Yeah, you two carry on.
But I think like Maheen's brings up a good point. I think Nintendo stick in their box so much, even the slightest differences get us fans hyped. 100% agree. 100%. Nintendo are doing the slightest thing new. Oh wow, let's give them like applause for it. But having said that, Scott, one thing we haven't touched upon is the online element of this game, where you're going to be able to do. It is a strand game. You're going to be able. People are going to leave you messages in levels to provide hints, and then you're going to be able to do this thing called
Elden
live
Ring style.
Play.
Yeah, Elden Ring style. Really?
Yeah, that's what I've got in my notes here. And then you can rate people using like a heart system on how good their tips were. Again, we don't know how wild this game's going to get in terms of level design. I imagine it's going to be the case where you complete the 6 worlds, and there's an whole other 6 worlds that is when the actual game opens up, which is what Nintendo always do. So yeah, overall. Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Go back to it, but the Nintendo stick in their box thing. Why would you make a 2D Mario game that isn't a 2D Mario? Like, what do we expect? At least it's not like PlayStation, where like every single one of their games are the same thing. At least like they keep the same thing within their own franchises.
I disagree, but yeah.
Don't know what that noise was. Mario in this one? Do we know?
That is the last topic, really, isn't it? Because they're keeping it a secret. Not Charles Martinet.
No one we know the name of.
It's not Mr. Pratt.
No.
Okay.
Because why would they bother? Because he's going to come in, he's going to say "Wowie Zowie," and he's going to go "Woo!" about 4 times.
Yeah.
And that's it done. And Chris Pratt would probably be like half the budget to do that. It's going to be it's going to be a voice actor who.
It's going to be Troy Baker,
who like 10 people will have heard of before now.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a Troy Baker. It's not going to be a Nolan North. It's going to be like someone, possibly even a new voice actor. And this
Roger
is
Craig
be like
Smith. He's done Sonic. Now he's doing Mario. Come on.
Just to answer your question, though, on the discussion points, will I be buying the Mario Red OLED edition? No.
Yes.
It looks nice, but why would I?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the OLED is an amazing console. But anyway, guys.
Yeah,
it's true. I didn't even get to make my one joke that I had planned earlier, which was when we were talking about Starfield. I said, guys, I never thought one of the best games of the year would be an RPG that launched day one on Game Pass. But enough about Sea of Stars. Anyway, I think
enough about Lies of P.
Not out yet. We don't know.
Yeah, not out.
Yeah. But anyway, guys, Nathan, Scott, this has been a wild roller coaster of an episode, I have to say. I think we've just about managed to stay on the rails. I want to thank everybody in the YouTube comments for being part of the conversation. I like to do this whenever I can. I like to shout out everyone. So Maheen, Jasmine, Adam L, Laura, Scott McCrae. You can be in two places at once, apparently. And I think that's everybody. Thank you for joining us. JD Incinerator, of course. How could I forget? Don't forget to join us next week for next week's Mirror Gaming Walkthrough. It's every Wednesday at 4 p.m. We'll be here to discuss the latest gaming news gossip. But anyway, guys, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
And Scott loves Skyrim. You heard it here.
I love Mario. Bye.
I love Macho Man Randy Savage mods. There we go.